Welcome to the Furthermore podcast. Hey everyone, you don't want to miss this. I am so excited to be with fellow Yang Gang member Courtney Ko. Courtney, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I am so happy to have you here. So, for all of you watching, we have like a diverse audience of artists, comedians, musicians, activists, professionals. Courtney is a part of the Yang Gang, as am I, and we were both heavily involved with the Yang Gang and the campaign. So, Courtney, why don't you tell us your Yang Gang origin story and your journey throughout the campaign?
Yeah, of course. I heard of Andrew Yang last March through The Daily Show. He was in an interview with Ronnie Chang, and he sort of piqued my interest because he's the first Asian American presidential candidate that I heard of. So I researched more about him, and when he was on the Steve Colbert show, that's when I started to really look him up and research his policies. And then starting in June, I started donating. And at the time, I was in grad school at San Francisco State. And I started getting more into the Yang Gang Twitter. And I met Eddie, who is part of Humanity for Yang. And he was like, hey, do you want to help out with Humanity for Yang? And I said, sure. And helped create the website for Humanity for Yang and do some of the social media. I also met Andrew Yang last November at a San Francisco fundraiser. And it was honestly like one of the best experiences of my life. And being part of the Yang Gang is one of the best periods of my life because I met so many great people, and I grew a lot as a person being in Yang Gang, and he inspired me so much to get more involved in politics. And yeah, I can't thank him enough for that.
Definitely. Yeah, I resonate with your story as well because I first met Andrew. I first joined the Yang Gang by meeting him at like a fundraiser in DC. I was like unsure, he was doing a fundraiser that was close to home. So I was like, what better way to understand his policies and proposals than to, go to like a fundraiser meet and greet. And it completely blew me away. Like his perspective on making just life more human centered, and like his problem solving abilities, especially like he takes into account like how to solve problems efficiently. And to me, like universal basic income really stuck out. And then it just went from there. Like I volunteered in Maryland, eventually became one of the regional organizers. So that was really cool. I volunteered with the Virginia Yang Gang as well and helped them facilitate a rally at George Mason University. So that was cool. So let's talk about universal basic income. Like, what was your first reaction? And then did it change over time? And then also, like, if universal basic income, becomes implemented sometime in in our lifetimes, like, what would you do with it?
Yeah, for sure. When I heard about universal basic income, I thought it was really awesome, and I hope that it comes into fruition.
Right.
Um, I didn't I didn't really think negatively of it, and I thought like, wow, this could help a lot of people,
Right.
because at the time I lived in San Francisco, and there's a lot of homeless people there, and I think that, but with $1,000, it could help them a lot, and
Right.
like people living paycheck to paycheck, um, they need that floor to like stand on,
Right.
and $1,000 might not sound like a lot, but it really makes a difference. I remember receiving my stimulus check, and I was so happy.
Yeah.
um, yeah, and uh, what I would do with a UBI, I would use it to pay bills
Right.
and it'll give me a foundation to like move out of my family's home and to be more independent.
Definitely. I think my answer is pretty much the same because with UBI, I would be able to be more financially independent. And before the pandemic, traveling was on my mind, especially as a stand-up comedian, like traveling to New York City and whatnot. But even with like quarantine and staying put until we as a country get through COVID, like it would open doors to like even like equipment upgrades and having my like mental bandwidth be more used for like artistic expression than like being bogged down by bills and financial stressors. So I definitely relate to that with UBI. Uh, can I ask like what did you study, or are you still in grad school? What are you studying?
Yeah, I graduated from San Francisco State with a master's in psychology.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, really weird to have a virtual graduation.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, you graduated during this.
Yeah, it seems like it happened last year, but it was this year.
Yeah. Wow. What was that like? Because I have like a handful of friends that graduated like medical school and other schools as well, and it was very surreal for them. What was like the virtual graduation?
Yeah, it was really weird. I don't it feels like I didn't finish,
Mm,
because when you have a real graduation, that's like the the milestone you finished, but
yeah,
like a virtual graduation, it's through a live stream and it feels really like incomplete.
I hear you. Yeah. What sort of courses did you take, and did your program have a certain focus or concentration?
Yeah, I was in the mind, brain, and behavior program, and I was studying um, with Dr. Suri on decision making.
Wow.
Um, yeah, one of my favorite classes was with him, and I studied machine learning
Wow.
and
Cool.
yeah, and data science.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like Scott Santons, the really active UBI advocate on Twitter. He was a psychology major too, so really proud to have psych majors and like psych graduates, in the Yang Gang. I think we have like the values and like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like we have that perspective. I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really important topic, and I wish people um, took more interest in it and took it more seriously.
Right. I agree for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Humanity for Yang is, if I remember correctly, and you can correct me after, but from my memory, it's a group that I remember you said it pertains largely to like the social media side and like coordinating perhaps social media campaigns. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I we trended a lot of the Yang hashtags.
Right.
Hmm.
So I took pride in Andrew Yang being a big figure in Asian American political representation. I say that also because uh, in 2016, unfortunately, like I believe Bobby Jindal was like the first, I don't know, South Asian presidential candidate. I don't know if it's like for any candidacy or the Republicans, but I was I was like, no, like, we were like opposites, me and Bobby Jindal, for example. But yeah, so that's like my like I'm like happy that Andrew Yang is like a really positive force in Asian American representation and like political and civic engagement. What's your perspective on like Asian American representation and like Andrew Yang and stuff?
I'm so glad you asked this question. I I believe that Asian representation is so important. Um, it really empowers you to do more for others when you see someone like you doing
Right.
doing that. A few years ago, I wasn't as engaged, and I kind of like suppressed my Asianness, because I didn't feel seen, you know, and seeing and over the years seeing Asian comedians, Asians in politics, Asians on the big screen, that really empowered me to embrace my own culture and um, to uplift other Asians in the arts and in politics, because I believe we need more of that, and I don't know if you've seen the video, but there's this little girl. She was watching Hamilton, and um, Eliza, she's an Asian American woman,
Mm.
and the little girl was like screaming that she's like, that's me," and I thought that was so like heartwarming, and I wish to be a part of you know bringing more representation to the Asian community, because I believe it's so important. It really changed my life when I saw more Asians in Hollywood and on
Right.
TV.
Definitely. I agree 100%. And I was really inspired by Andrew Yang going for the top, like really going for it, being ambitious, because I have this like self perception or thing ingrained in my head where us Asians need to kind of only excel at like middle management and like step by step, but not necessarily be the focal point, or the leader in charge of it all. So I was very inspired to see Andrew really take that leap, and it really energized me and inspired me to also get involved in every way. So
Yeah, and historically we have um, the stereotype that Asians are quiet and reserved and don't go against the status quo. And I'm so glad that uh, Andrew is going against that
right.
and breaking the biggest stereotype.
Absolutely. And I think that ties into like UBI. It gives everyone a floor, and then like if we were, wanting to like pursue our own dreams, like for in my personal story, my pursuit of pharmacy school was kind of like this compromise between me and my parents. Like they initially wanted me to do medicine, so I kind of compromised at pharmacy. Then I worked like a research job for a year, and it was like okay, but I wanted to like really pursue something I'm passionate about, which was stand-up comedy. So I think like Andrew, not only is he being a big role model in Asian American leadership, but he's advocating precisely for the tools for other Asian Americans and everyone that wants to propel themselves like independently into their own like goals and visions. Can you share like your future career goals or interests, perhaps like in the space of psychology or political involvement? Like what's the next steps and your future goals?
Yeah, so I'm currently a product manager at a fintech startup. So nothing really to do with psychology.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I work at uh, a company called Tip Brightly, and we're a cashless tipping uh, company, and our mission is to empower service workers and employees to and recover the lost tips from COVID. And sometimes you go to a restaurant or a hotel and you don't have cash. So
Mm,
um, what do you do? You know,
right.
and and I believe that we're moving toward a cashless society. I don't know if you notice at like Starbucks or McDonald's, there's like a coin shortage.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, there's a
Huh.
coin shortage. So I think that we're moving towards a cashless society, even with COVID, because um, people don't want to like circulate money because it
Right.
gets passed around.
Right.
Yeah. My next steps, I hope I hope to run for a local office someday. Probably not in the near future, but like far down the line.
Down the road. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that'd be awesome because
Mhm.
uh every week or so there's like an announcement of Humanity Forward endorsing a new candidate, and it's really cool to see their stories and like their journeys and their local level races and whatnot. Um, and like yeah, for me, like I don't know if I'll still be in Maryland or where comedy takes me, or if I kind of level out back to like a 9 to 5 kind of lifestyle. I might. Andrew Yang has definitely inspired me to consider running for office, and if not, staying involved in some shape or form with civic engagement. Thoughts on time banking? So I have a question like about this cashless society. Were you able to read The War on Normal People?
Yeah.
Cool. And like the thing I wanted to ask you about was like I believe it's called time banking, where Andrew describes a system of exchanging deeds and like skills and favors. Maybe something needs repaired. So yeah, what's your perspective on that?
I think it's great. I actually met the person who created the app
Oh, cool.
for time banking, and she came on with Andrew at the SF rally,
Oh,
and
awesome.
and yeah, he introduced her. It was amazing. Yeah, I think that it would make the world a better place, like
Right.
if we had time banking.
So growing up, like for most of my childhood, if not all of it, Bill Gates was like the richest person in the world, and I never like thought anything negative of that. But these days, with like Jeff Bezos, it made me like question kind of like the meaning of money and like GDP. And it's like I feel like there's a disconnect with like any form of um, conventional currency, and I wish like currency or whatever the economic system had more of this time banking sentiment or core value to it. So um,
Yeah,
awesome.
I wish society cared more about like helping others, instead of having it like a competition all the time.
Definitely. Yes. I really resonate with that because yeah, I feel like working here in the just in the US. I mean, I've studied abroad in a number of countries, and not all of them have this like uh, just like really on and grinding from 9 to 5, often outside of 9 to 5, like chasing for the top. And like the only way to survive is to actively compete. And so there's like this missing piece of like, why can't we just embrace balance and like, do we have to always be like doing this rat race to the top? Like, I agree with that as well. So yeah, this has been an awesome conversation, and I'm really excited to see what like our network of active Yang Gang members and your team and group in Humanity for Yang and Humanity Forward. I'm yeah really excited to see what we all do as a community. Anything else you would like to say to viewers?
Yeah, I'm actually thinking of starting my own podcast
Awesome.
called Beyond the Quo, and um, it means like beyond going against the status quo, and I want to um, empower other Asian Americans to challenge like the model minority myth and the status quo and like speak up. And I want to talk about like mental health and tech and growing up Asian American. So that's coming up for me.
Awesome. That is super exciting. I'm
Yeah,
definitely gonna keep an eye out. I'll
would
keep it.
love to have you on it.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Yes.
Yeah.
Beyond the Quo, everyone, we shall keep an eye out. We are excited. Don't lose hope. We will make it through this pandemic as a community. And thank you so much, Courtney. Huge pleasure having you.
Thank you.